Hello once again. Today we have the Battle of the Puppets because we have Bobby Strings right here and the Marionette Witch right here. And as you could probably see, they are both very, very similar. One is from Home Depot, one is from Spirit Halloween. One is $100 and the other one is $310. A little bit less if you use the 20% off that anyone can get from Spirit, which of course you shouldn't buy a single thing from Spirit unless you have the 20% off. Despite their similarities, there are a lot of differences. First of all, as you can see, Bobby is much, much, much bigger than the Marionette Witch. When his legs are down, he is like between 5 and 6 feet. It's crazy. Get a good look at that. And let me put the witch's legs down so that you can kind of get an idea. And there you go. Here is a good comparison between the witch and Bobby. Now, not only are the bodies different in size, so is the whole structure, as like would naturally come with the different body sizes. Bobby's doesn't even fit in frame. It goes all the way up here. It's about 8 feet tall. It's like almost 8 feet tall. And the witch is about 7 feet tall. It's like, I think a little bit over 7 feet tall. Wait, let me actually just grab a measuring tape to actually get a real measurement of them. Okay, Bobby Strings is 7 foot 9 inches, and she's about 7 foot. Something I'd like to point out though that puts the witch way above Bobby is that Bobby Strings has a totally cardboard, a cosmetic piece to be the cross. Now, of course, it's a metal structure underneath that like houses the mechanism and everything, but it is just completely open on the top and it's just straight like melt in the rain cardboard. So if you ever wanted to use that in the rain, you would have to get it laminated or like you're just screwed. This one, however, is built for outdoors. It's kind of a Home Depot standard, which I really, really appreciate. This is just completely plastic. It holds the mechanism inside. It's not open on the top. And the control box is actually also inside of this. All the controls are in the back of this cross here, which I think is super duper cool and a super interesting and different way to kind of organize an animatronic. Bobby Strings, it's the usual. You've got the control box inside of his chest here. And there's nothing necessarily bad about that. It's just that like this did it in a much cooler way. Now this is either a plus or a minus depending on how you want to see it. The structure of these things. So this one has this cool wood texture that kind of plays along with the cross here, so it all kind of makes sense as one big structure. But when it comes to Bobby, it is totally black and meant to be hidden like in the darkness. So he's supposed to look like he's just kind of floating from the cross. Which, if that's your intention, then that's cool. But personally, I highly prefer the wood texture. It just looks better in my opinion. I kind of like it when it makes sense just as a whole thing on its own. Something while they're turned this way, I would like to point out. Bobby has to be attached to the back, whereas the witch is just completely dangling. Now that's something that's a difference because of the size. Like when you have something this big, it kind of has to be supported in the back and can't be completely dangling from the strings here. Now with the witch, there's a lot of little quality of life improvements that Spirit Halloween animatronics usually don't have. That's just because this comes from Home Depot, so it's kind of a standard thing. As you can see on the side, it has these cool little clips that run down the whole bar here. That's for this cord to run down. And also it has a lights on only mode. Right now it is on that mode. It has a bunch of lights that are built into its cross and a light on its hat. Also some red lights in its eyes. So when you want to display it as a static, then it just looks that much cooler. Bobby doesn't really have any of that. He is a standard animatronic other than the whole string situation going on. One more thing I'd like to mention, the box size difference. Some people care an awful lot about storage, such as people like me. I only have a shelf that's right above me to store all my animatronics. So obviously, since the witch is a much smaller character, it fits in this slightly smaller box than Bobby. I'm disappointed that it's not a even smaller box because the witch is in one piece. It's not put together in any way. It's just like it's all there once you open up the box. And I think that that contributes to its larger box size. I feel like Home Depot hasn't really cared about making the boxes really compact or small as of recently, because when your audience buys things like tofu skeletons, it seems like they could store anything. Now Bobby, of course, has an even bigger box size, but what I enjoyed is that he was super compact in there. The whole body comes into many parts, so for such a large character, it's a decently sized box. But when it comes to storage, since she's got the slightly smaller box, she wins in that regard. But that's kind of a given. When you're getting a smaller prop, it's going to have a smaller box. Now, those are all the main differences before activating them. So let's get to that and compare them after seeing them both go.
I've got a frightening fairy tale to tell you before you go to bed tonight. Once there was a handsome puppet that was so friendly that he gave you a big hug. This made you happy because you're the villain in the fairy tale and nobody likes you. Don't worry, I'll be your friend forever. No strings attached.
Okay, that's enough of you. Time for the witch.
In the shadows I dwell, where magic wounded spell. In the darkest of night, I gain more power for all the fight. Now if I can just get this spell right, I can reverse this cursed life.
Okay, let's talk about the audio. Now, Bobby Strings does not have a well-liked voice or delivery, or even like written lines. I think people are disappointed because it has a lot of potential, just being this big creepy puppet, and then it has such goofy lines where he like sings and tells jokes and stuff. Now, I personally like it, but I'm aware that that's a hot take, so I'll count that as a negative. But a positive is that his audio quality is really good. Now, I wouldn't be mentioning that if it wasn't for this thing. Now, the witch is just, you can't understand it. This thing needs subtitles in real life. You might be wondering where that $100 price tag is coming from, and it's pretty obvious that a corner was cut with the audio quality. Now, that corner is cut with a lot of the Home Depot animatronics this year, so this isn't the only one with bad audio quality, but this one is the worst. Like, at least with the other animatronics, you can understand most of what they're saying. But with this one, it is a challenge. So you kind of might as well have the audio off with this one. So it's kind of, they're kind of matched up. If you really, really hate the voice and lines of Bobby, and you can't understand the lines of this one, they're kind of matched up in that regard. So the audio kind of doesn't really matter anymore. But on a personal level, I like this one. Now, when it comes to which one is better, that's kind of a tough question to answer just in its entirety, because they have different use cases. This one is a budget animatronic. It's not supposed to be big and crazy, but it is pretty big. It's 7 feet tall. It's got good animation. Oh, and speaking of the animation, I don't like this one's as much because it looks like she's running in place. Like, her legs are too close together. It looks like she's trying to run. And her hands and legs are like out of sync with each other slightly, as you can probably see. Which leads me to believe that they are two different motors, which is kind of cool. But Bobby Strings uses a servo motor on the top and this clever kind of pulley system, which leads to this animation, which I think is the perfect animation for a puppet animatronic. So when it comes to animation, like, I like this one a lot better, but I've seen people who prefer this one. So it is like kind of up for debate. I'm just giving you my opinions. Now again, when it comes to which one is better, this one is better for outdoors. If you're on a budget, you could only spend like $100 or a little bit more, and you plan to use it outside, you've got to get this one because it is, of course, very cheap and completely just waterproof. You can leave this thing outside, it'll be fine. Now, I really wish I could say the same for Bobby Strings. Spirit Halloween, please freaking waterproof your animatronics. I want to use them outside without the top just melting. Home Depot is beating you. Now, the only reason that this is better in my case is because I can use it indoors. I have this very large garage that I do my haunted house in. So if you have a covered porch or a garage, then I would highly recommend this one. If you care about like having a better character, this one has a way cooler character than the witch, because the witch is just like a basic witch. There's nothing really interesting going on about it. It's really cool that it looks like it's carved out of wood, but this one also looks like it's carved out of wood. Because when I think puppet, although puppet witches are a common like old thing thing that was an actual like thing. I think of like Pinocchio style marionettes, such as Bobby Strings. I just find it a lot more unnerving that it's just like a kid, you know? So on a objective standpoint, it's hard to compare them on like which one is better because of the different use cases. But when it comes to my subjective opinions, I really like Bobby Strings better. And of course there are some modifications that you could do to try and fix the whole like outdoor issue. You can try and cover up his mech, laminate the cardboard if you care enough, because you're spending $300 or a little bit more on this guy. So like you might as well just like do these little things that will make him usable outdoors or in any other circumstances. But yeah, honestly, I would recommend both of these things, but I would simply recommend this one more. I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to like place them next to each other because it's kind of cool to see it like this. These are two very similar yet very different animatronics, and let me know which one is your favorite in the comments.